Shifra is the president of Act 2 Interiors and has over 2 decades of experience in the interior design industry. Act 2 Interiors is a full-service design and build company who specializes in the design of healthcare facilities, commercial spaces, and residential buildings nationwide. But this subject matter is something that's fascinating and something I did learn about a little bit at FIT myself, and I don't think we ever covered, so I'm actually really excited to have you here on the show. Thank you for joining me here on Mind Your Business.
My pleasure.
Greatness isn't born overnight. Perhaps you could just share what's your backstory to, what got you to where you are today?
My journey to the interior design field was really not a planned one.
Okay.
I always wanted to do something creative.
Okay.
I was creative from a very young age, but I didn't really choose interior design as a major. When I went to FIT,
Right.
my subject that I wanted to study was textile design because I always drew and I painted, and I figured it would be nice to do it on fabric. Well, I prepared a gorgeous portfolio, which I thought was good.
Okay.
Spent a lot of time, and when I went to register and presented it, was
Right.
accepted.
Okay.
And when I looked at the schedule, it turned out that most of the workshops, because every class has a class and a workshop,
Right.
most of the workshops are given over weekend, which meant
Shabbos,
Saturday and
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Right.
So I took Yogi Berra's advice. When you have a fork in the road, take it. So, okay, interior design would be a nice option. So I registered to interior design, and I started that. I started studying that. I really had a field day in school. I was living my dream, the creativity that was going on there, and I don't have to tell you, I'm sure you were there.
It's a very creative place.
The place was bursting with competitive creativity, and it was like, wow. So I kept on taking classes and taking classes.
Okay.
I never wanted it to end. I had 2 young children at home. I didn't think I was ready for full-time employment. So when I finished with interior design, I switched to fashion design. I took everything there was to learn.
Wow.
Millinery design,
You
tailoring.
took AD, advertising
Tailoring.
design?
No, that I did
okay.
not do.
So you're on
Tailoring
the
techniques.
You're on the 8th Avenue side.
I was on the 8th
Yeah, I
Avenue
was on
side,
the
in that
7th
big
Avenue
building.
side.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes. And then I was recruited right out of school to work for a children's wear company as a designer. I worked for that company for about 2 years.
Okay.
They wanted to dissolve the company, and I decided, why let it go to waste? I bought from them some of the assets and started on my own.
Okay.
I created a label called Sabrina that sold to major department stores, major chains, catalogs, specialty stores. It was a good 10 years of a lot of creativity.
Okay.
And then another fork in the road presented itself.
Okay.
My life kind of turned upside down when my late husband passed away. I couldn't travel anymore. I had a young child at home. And I had his business, which was Act 2 Glass. And I knew that it meant so much to him. I couldn't let it go. So I took over that business, ran it for a number of years until my son was able to take over. And when he did, I went back to my first love, interior design.
Wow.
So here I am today.
So that brings us to Act 2 Interiors.
Correct.
Full disclosure, Bottom Line Marketing Group had the honor of servicing Act 2. We created the brand new site, which we happen to love. That's why we included it
We
in our
love it too.
e-blast. Thank you. But even though I could talk about it, but who better to talk about it than yourself? Describe what Act 2 provides for its clients.
Act 2 is an interior design company that specializes in commercial spaces, healthcare facilities, and residential building, like large residential building that have common areas such as lobbies, corridors that need refurbishing, redoing. And that's our concentration.
Got you. Now, I understand that you do design and build. Now,
Right.
for those that are in familiar with this, they'll get it right away. For others, because I want to really impress upon the listeners the importance of this question that I'm about to ask. So design and build, meaning kind of the role of the architect and the role of the contractor, overseeing the whole thing from start to finish. My question is, and this applies to so many people in so many industries, why is it so important from your vantage point and your life experience to handle a project from start to finish?
First of all, we're very passionate about our design. The reason we went into that direction of design and build is because sometimes we saw our designs being watered down, changed.
You're being very polite. You're not saying butchered or anything
yeah,
like that.
I didn't say
Okay.
butchered, yeah, no. So we got more and more involved in overseeing the project. We learned a lot about construction, about who to hire and when, what to watch out for. And it came as a natural progression to just do the whole thing from beginning to end. It gives us ability to oversee the project. Our clients love it because they don't have to get involved with the contractors and overseeing and payments.
Right. A lot of maintenance there. A lot of maintenance.
Oh yes, and they
and
are
responsibility. And responsibility.
Sure.
If they're doing it on their own, they have to.
And knowledge. Knowledge that comes from experience, learning from your prior mistakes or just learning. Every project is a learning experience, like never ends. When you think you know it all, there is something that comes up that it's new, it's brand new.
So let's go back. Act 2 has been around for 2 decades.
Yes.
In some of the early days, when perhaps you just did design and handed it off, perhaps there's a project that comes to mind that was like just a major frustration. That I designed something, I had something so clear, I sketched it out. It was, and I just, you were like, as they say, pulling your hair out. That does such a project come to mind?
I remember one very clearly because I remember that frustration. It was a residential building, a beautiful building in Queens. We designed it. Everything came out so beautiful. Everything was so coordinated. We gave in our spec sheet. Everything was labeled, all the style numbers, everything was there. And for some reason, I was passing by, and I said to myself, let me go in and see what it looks like.
This is months later. Oh, they were in the middle.
No, they're in the middle of construction. And I'm walking in, and somebody's laying a floor. And I'm looking at the floor, and I say, that's not what we chose. So I called the contractor. He says, well, that's what they shipped. We ordered something, and that's what they shipped. I said, did you check it with our specs to see that it's the same style number? People make mistakes.
Right.
No, I didn't. Or somebody, we can walk in, and there is a different wallpaper. Or different shades, 2 different shades of different dialots, we call it in our industry. They said, so I asked, I said, why is this so off? You're putting 2 wallpapers, one against the other, and one looks lighter than the other. I said, they said that they have 2 dialots of the same paper. And I said, it's okay, but it really isn't.
Right.
And it always happens in an area that's very visible.
And everyone's going to notice
where
it.
the light is the strongest, and everybody's going
to...
So I can go on and on. We could take the entire interview to just talk about these things. So you see why we felt that we just needed to do it.
The importance, again, we're just stressing the importance that if someone's going to take a project on, see it through to the finish line. Even though, the flip side is, are you a control freak? And perhaps the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because
yes. I'm not
You're not ashamed to say it
No.
because you want it to come out the way you envisioned it. So I've heard you discuss how interior design involves all 5 senses, which is fascinating because, people listening on the radio, it involves, basically hearing. It's one of the 5 senses. Explain why that is and why it's so important that what you can accomplish through great interior design because you're communicating and you're touching all 5 senses.
Correct. So there are some people that are not impressed by what they see.
Okay.
They can walk into an office and it just doesn't, the visual part is not their strength. Now, if they walked into an office that had fresh coffee brewing, Oh, that tickled a sense in them.
Okay.
That gives them the good feeling. There are people who are very attuned to any sound. So if you can, if it allows, if the space allows for some sort of music to be piped in the space, that makes them feel good.
Okay.
The touch is also an important thing, because sometimes when let's say you sit on a sofa, and if you are colorblind, or if shapes don't matter to you, but when you touch the fabric, it feels good. So the more you can involve the senses in design, the better the result could be, and the more different type of people you are tickling with the design. You arouse something in them that makes them feel good.
So let's go through it again. The 5 senses, of course.
Did I cover all 5?
Right. So there's the seeing, of course. There's the hearing, the music, the ambience. There's, let's say, the sense of smell. So let's say a coffee brewing machine or other types of sense. The feel.
Right, touch.
Right, the touch and feel. And, of course, the last one, taste.
Right.
How does taste have a role in interior design?
If you had, let's say you are a nursing home operator, and in your lobby you have fresh cinnamon buns, of course with the coffee, and some beautiful fruit.
Or a juice machine.
Or popcorn, anything that people like.
Once you say popcorn, you're going right back to smell.
I have a good example with popcorn.
Okay.
What the power of popcorn, I call it.
Okay.
So that also, it gives someone a good feeling. And interior design is not just about seeing something pretty. It is feeling good. And you need to engage all your senses to get this ultimate good feeling. In my office, I always make sure that we have popcorn and some other power bars and all kinds of...
Okay.
But the popcorn comes 4 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's kind of weak from the day and staring at the computer, and you see that their eyes are totally glossy and there's just not anything happening that's productive. I don't have to say a word. All I do is I go to the microwave and I pop in a popcorn. And if you look at people, immediately you see, oh, popcorn, and everybody, it's like wakes people up. It's amazing. So yeah, it works.
It's a special shout out that I had taken courses a couple of years back at Strategic Coach, and thank you to Mark Bodner, JG, Jonathan Gassman, and the others, David Schild, that had introduced me to Strategic Coach. And I remember it's a full day training for executives, and every single session at 3 o'clock, you can almost you smell the popcorn and they wheel it in. Right. And actually, I wasn't able to have it. It wasn't kosher. So, but but even the smell of it and watching everyone go for it, just popped in that energy.
It gives you a new energy, right? And you see, I didn't even hear these people. This is something that I learned on my own, because when I saw the reaction, I said, this is the best thing to wake up people.
How does design differ from industry to industry? Like you mentioned healthcare, but maybe what would be some tips that are important to factor in when designing a corporate office?
Okay, so light would be my first thing. Lighting is very important in the workspace. The flow of work should be constant. In other words, no interruptions. If I want to go to the CEO's office to show him something, I need to be near him if I'm seeing him often.
Regularly, right.
Because you know how easily interrupted people are today.
Right.
All you have to do is get a phone call and you forgot already why you're going there. So being in the right place, setting up the office in such a way that the people who need other people will be near each other. On the other hand, if your business is a creative in a creative mode, then you may want people to sit together in one pool, because creativity is something that you collaborate a lot with, and people bounce off each other and feed off each other and are challenged by one another. Our office, for instance, is set as one large center desk, and everybody sits around. And while I do have my own office, I am never there. I'm always sitting with the team.
I love the honor of interviewing C-level executives and sharing their great advice and perspective on Mind Your Business. I'd love to get your feedback. Post it in the comments below and subscribe. You'll never miss an edition of Mind Your Business.